Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the World Championship Series StarCraft 2 Challenger Edition. I'm Nathanius, joined by In Control, and the only thing more out of control than how awesome you guys are is how crazy this winner's match is going to be.
It's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Did you like that? Did you like that intro, Jeff?
Yeah. You were ramping up for the fake commentator thing. I was going to support you this time.
Oh, damn it.
But it's gone now.
Okay, well,
the moment's gone.
As long as we're no longer friends again, we can talk about TvP, which is our winner's match. We've got HeroMarine versus ShoWTimE. It's counting down to start the game as we speak. What's your favorite and least favorite thing about TvP, Jeff? Real quick.
I think it's one of the better matchups right now. It's really fun. There's a lot of different kind of openings. I mean, across the, 5 or 6 games we've seen so far, it's been a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, more than that, 9 games. My goodness. The morning's just going.
It's been great.
But 2 Germans stand opposition of each other.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about that. Is this the real Meisterschaft that's happening right now?
Meisterschaft Minner.
This is, I actually think both of these players do have a Meisterschaft, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They're born with it.
We could talk more about that after we introduce the players. In the top right, we have the red German Terran player. He is HeroMarine. Oh, God.
Gabriel Sagat. Not the Street Fighter, by the way.
Not the Street Fighter.
A lot of people get him confused for that.
Not the Street Fighter.
In the lower left-hand side, hailing from the fatherland, it's the Blue Protoss. It's the ShoWTimE. Tobias Schreiber.
Yeah, they shouldn't have had us cast 2 Germans playing each other. This is actually a mistake.
No, it's okay. I can handle this.
I can't. Okay, well, I'll try to I'll try not to slip too far off the edge. Try not to give too many people more reasons to hate me if I could manage it. Double gas opening, by the way, out of ShoWTimE.
We should cast this in a German-friendly accent so that the audience can get closer to the subject.
Perhaps.
Ah, yes. You built the Stargate outside of their base, so I can't find it.
But it's so far in the northwest, it's not too much closer, so it must be Dark Shrine, yeah?
Yeah, it could be his location, of which, of course, is not.
It wouldn't be very efficient to not put the Stargate a bit closer to
Yeah,
the Terran base.
well, if you don't account for the scouting time, of course, but like if it's just travel time, then no, if it's not better.
Wait for it, though. It's going to be a Twilight Council. I feel like Nate's right this time, and it's a super fast one, probably. But could it be a Stargate? Is Jeff right? Only time will do it! Do it! Right. You got it, dude. Whew. And it is probably Dark Shrine, which is crazy for ShoWTimE. That's not what he does.
Yeah, this is cool. I like it. A little shake up.
Yeah.
You know, one common trend from HeroMarine's gameplay is his fast little stim attack builds don't have the Raven early on. So perhaps there is room for a cheeky Dang Shrine to get thrown in there if he is focusing a little bit more on his aggressive posturing rather than his tech setup.
Oh my God.
We throw it all out the window though because it's actually just Blink. He's just hiding Blink. So this might be a meme stim snipe strategy then?
Why?
I don't know.
I feel like there's...
I got way too emotionally invested in this opening, and now I feel disappointed.
I mean, this
Game
is like
of Thrones all
GSL
over
level
again.
crazy, where it's like, yes, the Blink will surprise you. If he starts throwing down gateways and makes it a timing, that's cool. Because if you look at the left side of the Terran main, there is a lot of space there to blink up in.
Yeah, but he tucked everything in towards the right side. So, like, he did this the way he should have. It's not really feasible to snipe that. But, yeah, the hiding the Blink is funny to me. I'm waiting for the day where a Terran player, like, does the factory at home, hides the barracks in a similar, like, bottom right corner of this map and just hides stim.
Oh, wow.
Right? It's just, like,
that's
fake
clever.
out.
No, that'd be good.
I could see it versus a Zerg one day, right? You show up, there's just 3 command centers in a factory, spinning Hellions. You're like, oh, I guess the barracks floated away. But
you know what actually happened?
It was me all along.
Without knowing, but I'll tell you, this is what happened, is that did happen to every Terran player. Every Terran player was like, I'm going to try something creative. And they hid the barracks. They were making it. And then just a Zealot walked by and was like, oh, hey, piece of candy. And so there's like slamming on it. And he's like, well, I'll never be creative again. And it just never, can't do it.
Never going to dance.
Protoss, they all see it. They always find it.
An angel died today.
They always find it.
He's been hurt.
It looks like he wants to be aggressive, though.
Yeah, I mean, this pylon is it's not the most defensive pylon I've ever seen. I'll say that much.
But he's only got the 3 gateways. How
So
offensive can he be?
Jeffrey, here's my real question. He's getting combat shield first, which I find a little bit curious because you will not be able to move out on the map against Blink Stalkers with just combat shield.
Not with that attitude.
Yeah, well, and I have that attitude, right? So I just got to live with it, and I'm interested to see what happens because I feel like ShoWTimE, if he micros well, could just rip his face off, basically.
But then a siege tank came out.
Yeah, but does the tank cover both bases? Weird thing about putting everything on the right side as well is he didn't really have vision to spot that this was coming up. So by the time he repositions to try and stop this, he will be able. Yeah, he can already blink out again. So without the tank sieged and without stim, there's not a crazy amount as long as he doesn't lose Stalker. Oh, look at that! Look at this try-hard micro. He even loses a Stalker in the end of the day.
Didn't try hard enough.
Should have just blinked them all out at once, Jeff. God.
Gets a good read on everything, though. Sees the Bioforce, and yeah, without stim, and its stim's not even started here, actually. So maybe that's a mistake. It has to be a mistake. There's no reason to delay that. It just kind of puts him in disarray a little bit.
Yeah,
His
the fact that
observers get away
he's
with murder,
still
too.
yet to start stim. My anxiety's actually being triggered right now. This isn't good. I'm getting worked up. I can't handle this.
I can pick up the Marauders. Don't care about the Marines. They don't have stim, so kiting backwards the tryhard micro here. He's going to get some more blood for the Blood Tithe. Still, the signature one though. He's like, you know what?
Yeah.
Listen, I'm
It's
an
like
honorable
attacks,
Protoss. You got to
right?
take one.
Yeah, he didn't bring his easy pass, so he's just paying the toll every time he comes in and out, and that's it. And then gets the rest out of there. Yeah. Okay, stim finally started. Oh, I was.
You having a tough time over there?
Yeah, no, that's. It just gives me nightmares because this isn't a game where Stim got sniped and he did such a good job of making it unsnipable, but he not only got combat shield first, which has really done nothing for him, he's also like didn't start Stim immediately after.
The best part about what just happened, by the way, for people that don't know, is because of Nate's his comments about combat shield versus Stim, he is earning HeroMarine talking about Nate for the next like 2 weeks on stream.
Wait, is he gonna call me a silver leaguer again?
Yeah,
it's fine.
That's what's happening, and I can't wait.
HeroMarine will never compliment me, so I've not lost anything here, Jeff.
Oh my God, your analysis is on point. That's good.
Yeah, that's the truth is I know HeroMarine so well. And it's actually the greatest commentary I've ever heard.
It's true.
Yeah.
You have lost nothing, but you have earned more of the thing you were getting.
To be fair, HeroMarine was probably 300 IQing that it would be a hidden dark shrine because he just telepathically knew that the Templar or the Twilight wasn't home, and combat shield would have allowed his Marines to survive a swipe from the Zealots.
Okay.
So there is my justification. Theoretically, in that scenario, combat shield would have been amazing. So that's all I got. There you go.
It's tough though because you just get stim, and then scan and kill the
stim, you
DT.
just kind of kill everything, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, do I need extra health if I just kill everything in half a second? Do I?
The problems that Terran players have.
Yeah, do I want to live a little longer or just kill everything? Well,
Well, Stalkers being annoying. We're seeing them kind of flutter around outside the base, and they're not getting super amazing damage done, but they're killing a Marine or two here. They're forcing stims, and they're just kind of keeping him on point. Maybe soften up that Cyclone a little bit, and yeah, slowing down this is nice as well. Because behind this, we can see Colossi are being squeezed out. And 3-base economy is full up and going, so ShoWTimE has cultivated a decent situation here, but this push, it's sizable.
It's scary.
Dip.
And he kind of just wants to move in on here. Okay, there's the tank sieging. I'm going to go back just for a quick second to what I was saying at the start of this game in regards to why I thought Dark Templar wouldn't have been bad. And he doesn't have a Raven. He never got one. He's kind of been, of all the TvP games that we've seen today, and it has been a lot, Raven's kind of been one of the constants that have been sticking through, but not having that Raven in this particular phase of the game makes it kind of hard to break where that Colossus is. Because if he was, maybe you take a couple of units out of here, one of the tanks, but you interference matrix the both Colossi, well then the bio just rolls over it, right?
Nate, now my anxiety is coming in. So I like this drop, that's cool, but the siege location of the Terran army is super weird, and in this time, range on the Colossus will finish, armor might very well finish, shield barriers have gone up, more gateways have finished, so now he's pushing forward to a more critical spot. And yes, he has kind of linked up his ability to reinforce, but HeroMarine's on 2 bases, my dude. He has a third orbital behind this, I believe.
Yeah. He's got to kill this next.
He has to kill it. If he doesn't kill it, he's dead, I think. Or he's at least in a lot of trouble.
Oh, he's going to force Protoss in on him. He took the last couple shots there, but the Zealots are going to charge up. Tanks not actually focus firing, so he is shooting his own units with the tanks a little bit. As the Zealot meat shield gets cleared up, looks like the next wave of reinforcements is going to come in.
That's a lot of Marines, though.
He's got to kill the whole entire army and the third right now. And, well, that's not happening.
He's not going to do it. He's going to lose the Widow Mines behind this as well.
And now the third command center is there. So I guess he did squeeze it out during all of this, but he doesn't have anything to really stop him if he's got a Liberator that came out, so he could try to use that to hold on, but
too much died. I think there's a lot in ShoWTimE that would usually just like not attack, because that's what he does, but when you kill that much, he knows that even ShoWTimE has to attack right now.
Yep. It's kind of like hard, right? He doesn't want to blink into the Liberator zone, I guess, because there's Marauders on the other side, but Colossi will still push the command center away.
He is getting a Warp Prism. It's about to come out here, so that is the kind of safety. You don't really want to fight too far away from your ability to reinforce. But he's even posturing to take a fourth behind this, and the third is going to land immediately. And you might look at that and say, well, HeroMarine can't defend that. Why is he doing that? It's such a desperate situation that he has to start cutting some corners. So no, this third's not the most stable of things. But do it, drop it, land it, and then go for like 9 mules on it to try and get back into this thing. He's up there in army supply. He's only behind a little bit on our, worker supply. But my problem is when an attack like that fails that bad, you lose so much. He's rebuilding medevacs. He's rebuilding a Marauder base. He doesn't want to have too many Marines against those Colossus. And all of that means that ShoWTimE is now given the space to diversify his armies. We see the Templar archives. We see a fourth base, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And plus the attack coming in for HeroMarine here. Yeah, definitely had a big opportunity to get a lot more done earlier, but I guess doesn't want to take the risk of potentially throwing it away with that attack. Getting the Zealots into the main base, really nice though. Yeah. There are a lot of Vikings. I'm not sure that Warp Prism. Did he go straight down? Okay, maybe. Yeah, I guess it'll be maybe.
I think it depends on how much he wants to chase, because it has to turn eventually. But even just seeing those Vikings is huge intel. So even if it killed the Warp Prism, I'd be okay with that. He's like, okay, he is going Vikings. And I know that sounds weird to some people because they're like, what? Of course you go Vikings and Colossus. No, not necessarily. But also having an idea of how many is a good call. If you see this swarm of them, then you stop building Colossus and switch into something else. But it is 4 Colossus, 4 ShoWTimE, so that's quite the investment. 3 is kind of the bare minimum, and that's an okay number. 4 and more is pretty heavy.
Yep. No, 4 Colossi definitely requires a Viking response. Or ranged Liberators, pretty much, but yeah, that's a bit further down the line.
Trying to buy time. Seconds away from Storm. There's all kinds of Templar spaced out here. I think that this upgrade will finish amidst this battle.
Yeah, Storm not being done yet, though, does mean that these Vikings just going to tank the Stalker shots to kill the Colossi so that the Bio can do what it needs to do.
Yeah, but they only kill 2. And now the Storm comes in.
Yeah.
Bioforce gets coated in the Storm. A lot of Marines die.
Oof.
He's out.
All right. Well, ShoWTimE takes game number 1 here for the winner's match. Well done. Yeah. The Stalkers did a good amount of damage poking early. HeroMarine's first attack just kind of fell on its face.
Sometimes I look over at you, Nam. I know that I said something that threw you off kilter, so I'm wondering what's going to come out. And you're like, you just went,
yep.
Good job, Protoss, I guess. And I'm like, are you getting salty over there, bruh? I don't know. I can't tell.
Oh, no. I just tripped over my own words.
Yeah. HeroMarine went for a 2-base push. That's what ended up happening here, if you're kind of wondering about this very lopsided result. And it was meant to kill the 3rd Nexus and probably win the fight. But again, I go back to this moment where he took the 3 tanks and he sieged way outside the 3rd. He wasn't winning space with it. He's not really choking anything off. And he was waiting, I guess, for reinforcements that were coming through, but they were spotted by a pylon, so they stopped. He then did a drop by itself, which still did okay damage because all of ShoWTimE's army was over here to get ready for this attack. But because these 2 things happened lopsided and slow, ShoWTimE dealt with the drop. And then the attack came. He's like, okay, I guess I'll go deal with that too. And range had finished, upgrade had finished, and the army gets butchered. And then ever since then, HeroMarine is put on the mega back foot. He's lucky there wasn't a Warp Prism out because ShoWTimE would have just reinforced, pushed, killed the 3rd, and won the game 7 minutes ago, I guess.
Yeah. Now, waiting for the Prism was a good play on his part, and then even then, HeroMarine still just attacked into him. And I'm just going to repeat what I said at the start of the last game. I think the Raven would have been useful. There's a reason why everyone's getting it. And I think that for many people, their issues, their qualms with TvP, as it were, the solutions are mostly found in the Raven.
Okay.
Interference Matrix works on pretty much everything they're going to throw at you except Zealots and Adepts. Everything else is mechanical that Protoss has, so, or psionic.
Read a different way, Nate, let me ask you this. Should HeroMarine be watching your stream to learn how to win in WCS? Can I just say that that's
well, funnily enough, I don't build Ravens versus Protoss or research Stim, so I will say no.
Okay.
If he wants to learn the way of the battlecruiser, perhaps, but...
The way of the battlecruiser.
Yeah. I will stand... I
soft delivered your moment there. You could have said HeroMarine needs to watch Nathanius' stream to learn how to win. You didn't take it. You didn't want to go there.
No. I don't... My strength, Jeff, comes from knowing who I am, and...
Okay.
I'm just a guy who plays StarCraft for fun. One of the 5 out of the entire player base.
Yeah. That is you, Nate. Dankest of memes.
Yeah.
Well, we are now in on Acropolis. What do you think about this map for TvP, Nate? And yeah, you were talking about the Raven.
Well, I love this map for 2 reasons. The first and foremost, no blink into the main. Like, that's not really a thing.
Right.
You're not worrying about that type of harass, and there's not this crazy airspace around your main or your natural that you can't like use 1 or 2 well-placed turrets to kind of push back.
Okay.
So there's a good amount of defensive capabilities. This is also going to work to the benefit of the Protoss player. You can block that 1 Reaper cliff with a pylon, and then we've actually already saw in an earlier match that was used as a full front wall. We're not seeing that this time around. It looks like ShoWTimE is going to block that with the cybernetics core. It feels like most people who play... Someone only recently pointed this out to me, by the way, that you can block it with a 2x2 building, but the instinct for many players, because of the way other maps are designed, is to put a bigger building there.
For people that suffer dimensional reading, 2x2 he means like
a
depot
pylon or a depot. Yeah.
Thank you for finishing me on that point, Nate. I appreciate that. I was like... gonna make the point, but then I was like, what is the word for pylon and depot? And then you came in and said it, and I was like, God, that is why he's here.
Honestly, I really like when we both say the same word at the same time.
Like sandwiches?
It makes me feel... just makes me feel a little bit closer to you, Jeff. Sometimes that's all I want to... That's the only place I want to be.
When we say the same word, would it be fair to say... Because that's... If you think about that, you'd have to be inside me to say the same thing. Do you think... Well,
psionically, we could be.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You want to be inside me is what you're saying.
Well, I don't think my hair is long enough. I don't think either of our hair is long enough to really
attach the collar.
Yeah, exactly. So
I like it's every other month.
Give us a few years to hit that ZZ Top status.
A Reddit thread will come up where they kind of talk like someone has another problem. They're like, and it's always the same back and forth. They're like, how do Protoss eat or anything? They don't have mouths. And then someone talks about it. It's photosynthesis.
Yep.
They absorb sunlight. They're plants.
And then there's a whole bunch of interesting questions that go along with that. But I think something to have with like how everything's powered by solar, right? Which, you know, coming from solar, you would assume that they just have engines that also just feed them sun energy even when they're not near stars, right? Because you'd think, how close to a star do you need to be to photosynthesize efficiently? And
they live in these kind of world ship type things, since Ire is no longer hospitable.
Yeah. Interesting
stuff. I like when people take lore further than I think anyone intended, but games as long like StarCraft that have been around 20 years, they have books, there's comics, there's
a whole thing.
Add-ons, there's a whole rich world. And you get to a place where you're like, why did Mutalisks flap their wings in outer space?
Yep. The Banshee one is still my favorite because it actually changed the game. That conversation got that Hyperflight rotor upgrade added. Just well, they have rotor blades and spinning in space wouldn't move them. And the dev guy's like, yeah, well, they have an extra engine just for that. And they're like, why can't I use it in the game? Why would the Banshee not use the space travel engine to just move faster? And then the dev's like,
you know what?
God damn it.
Suck on it.
You're right.
Yeah, that's why I can never be a game dev.
Now,
I would do that all day on the forum.
That's when we need the Mutalisks upgrade for like, you know, whatever would just make them gassier, right?
Yeah.
Which would basically be a speed upgrade. So
Farterial flux, they'd call it.
Yeah.
And just like travels faster by farting across the
centrifugal hooks, right? Is technically not like a thing, right? Centrifugal, like that word. So we can make new words for the Mutalisks upgrade as well.
Farterial. I've already made it.
Farterial.
I own an English bulldog.
Farterial flux.
Yeah. Basically, if you go back to the like beginnings of words. Anything that has to do with passing of gas, as a Bulldog owner, I'm there. So the Raven does come out, by the way. This is something that Nate was talking about being added in.
I'm very happy. I'm very happy about the Raven.
On the backside, we're seeing double forge, kind of blink opening from ShoWTimE. The game's been otherwise passive for those of you that just hate in-game banter. And thank God, Tastosis never talks about anything but exactly what's happening inside of StarCraft, because otherwise that would just be very upsetting. But it's been a very, very passive game, which ShoWTimE's happy to do, and HeroMarine will do, but I find that he does it more explosively. He'll be like passive, 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 massive push comes out. He's very good on the macro side.
Yep. I mean, everything here is really couldn't be more passive, really. Like double engineering bay, double forge. Even from the Terran side of things, it's usually just like the one eBay and you try to do a push out early on. So like neither player fighting like this is a bit unusual. I will harken back to HeroMarine's earlier match though, and I thought that really one of the keys to his success, Raven gets the Observer, really nice, but one of the keys to his success was that he didn't actually try to force anything super early. His like Marauder build was like interesting, sure, but he did a lot of this bio setup where he just kind of got everything going, and then he moved out right with like that medevac drop, but also the push in the third is actually on this map. And that to me was like kind of stands out. A lot of Terran players try to force the aggression versus Protoss, and I feel like that's where you see a lot of the complaints comes. It's like, well, you know, I tried to attack and it didn't work and I died. And I'm like, yes, of course, that's kind of a normal thing that can happen to you when you try to force it as well.
I end up being the Terran apologist in this situation a little bit though, because I don't disagree with what you said, but HeroMarine on the extreme side of just literally no harass at all. There's no drops, there's no run by, there's barely a Reaper. And now I look at the situation, I'm like, it's not like HeroMarine's dead by any means. They're pretty even across the board in terms of supply, but 15 more probes for ShoWTimE, which is significant. But it's Storm, it's double forge, it's a massive amount of gateways, and ShoWTimE's about to take a fourth while the third's landing, which is about the perfect time for Protoss. And look at this army that HeroMarine's kind of won for himself. Do we think this is about to pose any kind of threat at all, anytime?
No.
I'm worried.
I agree with you there.
Storm's going to be finishing up in a while. It just started, so it's not like immediately. But in that while is when this Terran army is going to ramp up. And right now it's a lot of bio. 1-1's getting close to finishing. Presumably 2-2 will queue up there. But it will be trailing behind those Protoss upgrades.
This is where he needs to start making his posturing, I guess. He's got the 2 medevacs on the top side. He's got a decent little chunk of bio with these tanks, and I think with these next 2 medevacs, maybe he moves out with the force that's at the third base. But he has to clear the towers first, and the map control is the problem, because he's going to see this army with the pylon here. And as that dies, he's like, okay, well, now the Zealots are all running up towards that 4th base, and that precious few seconds of heads up that the pylon gave him,
it's huge.
It's going to be enough to defend this base. Otherwise, I think that Nexus gets canceled easy.
Yes, absolutely. These spotter pylons have been incredible. If ShoWTimE doesn't see you with an observer, then he has pylons in the key places around the map. And like Nate just said, for 100 minerals to save a Nexus, you'll do that every single time. So here comes the army of HeroMarine. And I think this army's okay at canceling a base or fighting if there's a drop going somewhere else. But if you look at that mini-map, there's no drop heading to the main. And this is it. This is the whole army. And there is Storm now up and ready to go. Yes, the army's coated in anti-armor, but it's only 2 tanks down there as well. Like, I'm not really worried about that.
Yeah, it's so awkward, right? He has the Psy Storm to push back, which is really huge, because he got the really nice Dorito cannon onto a bunch of the Zealots, and it's going to allow him to punch through a bunch of the gateway units, but the Immortal is still alive in the back, and those High Templar are basically saying, you have to step off. It doesn't matter that you got a perfect Dorito cannon, because you can't even engage me in the first place, or you'll die to Storm.
Now, I will say, HeroMarine gets away from this fight, and still they're fairly equal in supplies across the board. So he's doing a good job ramping up behind that. He is already adding Ghosts, so he has answers for the things that are coming. He just needs to not absolutely lose everything out here, and he might lose this Raven, which is too bad. Yeah, okay, there it is. It's a nice resource. And now the medevacs, they don't have their boost because they boosted to go towards the pickup, but they are going to get away safely anyways. The army's on the warpath, though. I don't think there's a War Prism over here, unless that's what's flying behind it. I think that is actually a War Prism.
Yep, there it is.
So this can be reinforced. Nice EMP gets a lot of the Templar.
It gets all the Storms are off the table now, so the bio is going to charge in on top of this. The Dorito Cannon does end, but that next Warpin is going to try and help punch this one in as a bunch of Archons are going to mark behind this. Now those Widow Mines are going to make it very hard to continue to press this. Wow, the EMPs on those High Templar may have just saved the game. I think 1 or 2 Storms there, and ShoWTimE is able to end this one.
Absolutely agreed. Absolutely agree. Those EMPs were massively clutch. And now HeroMarine is able to give chase, but he rightfully doesn't chase too far. To go up that ramp against 3 Archons would be costly, to say the least. And he also knows that ShoWTimE's the kind of player who very often has 3 Templar with the army and about 6 smattered around the map. And they're usually coming towards the fight if you run too far. So HeroMarine's going to use that to create space, grab the tower, and take a 4th. And I love that choice because his army is diversifying. He's actually adding, very interesting, he's adding Vikings already. And there is no indication that they're needed, but we can see on the production tab a 2nd Robo and Robotics base. So he is, this is not 300 IQ, it's like 399 IQ. It's not quite 400, but it's getting there.
Yep, he hasn't scouted any of it either, so he's doing it purely on instinct. These professional gamers really stepping up. There are some High Templar ready to push him back on that ramp. War Prism hits the main base, though. This is always a trying time, but he had a wave of production. His units just coming out here, able to clean that up, and with the Vikings that he kind of preemptively built that you were talking about, those also end up being great for smiting down that Warp Prism, although I think it also just flew over the turret, which will get the job done just fine, too.
Yeah, HeroMarine's playing on point. The army has a huge amount of ghosts now. Vikings are coming out already, as we've been talking about, for this next response. He's on 4 bases. Yep. I am loving what I'm seeing from HeroMarine in this game. It's still an uphill battle.
Supply. It's nice. Yeah, he's in this. Well, he's gotten himself into the position where he's 100% in control of his own destiny from like a battle perspective. The issue of, did I get my bases up in time? Did I play too passively? I don't think is as much in play. But to your point, we were talking about Colossi earlier and his smart decision to just start building Vikings. He has 6 and +1 attack. But there are 2 Colossi on the map with 2 more on the way. So if he waits too long, he's going to find himself maybe wanting a little bit in that anti-air.
Yeah, and they're actually not even with the army. I think they're flying across now, so they do join the army, as the Colossi are here as well. So you're right. And as we proceed forward here, we can see, again, the Ghosts have a lot of energy. And he's clearing up the towers to kind of deny some of that information. That's really good. ShoWTimE is up to 5 bases. We've got just an absolute scrap on our hands here. This fight will be 2 armies that are equipped to deal with each other, and it will come down to execution, which I'm absolutely in love with.
That's it's about as technical as it really gets in StarCraft 2, to be honest with you. You've got Vikings and Ghosts versus High Templar, Colossi, and a whole bunch of Charged Zealots, some Stalker support, Immortal, etc., blah, 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 versus Bio. Fusion Core starts, though. Dark Shrine starts, and a Stargate. Both players are already thinking to themselves, yeah, I'm not sure if I want to take this fight, so they're going to set up the next step. I think for Terran, in this scenario, if you can't get like a money engagement or sick EMP of the lifetime, going for that Liberator transition is really important, really big. Storms are going to drop, lands a few EMPs on the Archons. The Vikings actually in a really good spot. Stalker's not in position to defend the Colossi, but the Storms are going to start to hit them, and pretty much all of the Vikings are going to go down. Only 1 Colossus remains with this army, however. So just brutal trades being made on both sides.
Yep. I do favor ShoWTimE in this case. And this is the scary guessing game that Terran gets into. Unless you can locate the Robos and be good about scouting, but even that's not really reliable. You're like, okay, he wipes out a lot of my Vikings. Do I remake them? If he goes back to Colossus, of course that's worth it. But in these maxed out armies, if you just go up to 10 Vikings blind and they never make another Colossus, well, guess what? You just hurt yourself by, about 20 supply in that army. And it really, really can be felt. But in this case, we can see more Colossus are being added, and still more Vikings are being added. So both players are responding to each other in kind.
Yep. Liberator range starts. Shadow Stride starts
I love it.
well. So we are going to have some Blink DTs. That's what that upgrade is.
I had no idea it's called Shadow Stride, by the way.
Yeah.
My God. Everyone just calls it Blink DTs.
Did you know it has a different... You would probably know. It does have a different visual effect than normal Blink as well. Look at that Cloaked Ghost. Gets sick EMP. So sick.
I know Blink DTs all the time, but yeah. No, he actually got all 4 and then sniped off another one, too.
Yeah. Nicely done.
And somehow doesn't die just because of the distraction of the war.
Do you know the name of the upgrade for Liberator range?
Liberator range?
Yeah.
It's the ballistic one, yeah.
Yeah, Advanced Ballistics.
There's some SCVs out here, too. And actually, it's on point because HeroMarine is at 81 SCVs. And the longer this game goes, the more that orbitals should be added. You really want to kind of get down to 50 or so SCVs.
Yeah, if you can get to like 6 or 7 orbitals, more is like obviously nice too, but you want to get that SCV count down to basically just like maintenance on minerals and mostly mining gas, and then just let your mineral income come from mules. And you mentioned this earlier, by the way. You talked about this. The High Templar just kind of spaced out for ShoWTimE.
if this wasn't such an army-centric game right now, you could look around these bases and there's always Templar that are not a part of the army and they're just floating around. It's something I do myself, and it's been a staple of a lot of Protoss play. But it is such a bear. It's such a burden for Terran to deal with. Like, you can make all the right calls, and then 2 storms hit center mass, and you're like, wait a second, my entire army is in yellow and red health all of a sudden. That's insane.
Yeah, and you know what the other casualty of that is medevac energy. Like, now he takes damage. Guess what? Doesn't get healed. A bunch of these Marines are going to be stuck in that yellow health. We can see we got the wonderful damaged life bars.
You know what's incredible about it, too?
It's going to get worse and worse.
Is the answer for Terran is they have to scan all the time. In order to stop this, you need to scan every single time you're moving back and forth. And the Terran wants to be shadowboxing here and moving back and forth. And then if you just EMP the Templar and they still get a couple feedbacks off or a storm, they turn into Archons. So it's this kind of falling like attrition thing, but it's very Protoss favored. And now we're going to have the fight. The Vikings are on the left side over here, and they're getting good shots off. The army's going to retreat.
The Stalkers and the Templar do not make a play for the Vikings at all. So the Colossi die damn near instantly. And the Archon Zealot forces, they're handled pretty nicely by the Ghosts. That Disruptor's a big threat, but he's going to cloak the Ghosts. Oh, we had DTs coming from behind, too. Oof.
Yeah, no, this is very, very bad. Everything's going to die. The medevacs might not even make it out of here. Doesn't actually have the detection for the Ghost, but there's such a few number of them that at this point it doesn't quite matter.
The Ghost kill a bunch of High Templar before the Observer shows up. Well, he's got ranged Liberators that are coming out behind this. Really, the big problem for Terran is you just need to hold and just try to slow it down enough that you can get a few production waves out, since that's generally the weakness in this scenario, is Terran's not going to be able to remax crazy fast. You don't have Warp and you don't have a Larva.
Run by at 9 o'clock, too.
You need to use that defense, and oh my god, yeah. Well, put that Shadow Stride to work in control.
I think the biggest issue for Terran is that if you ever, it's a very much so Protoss problem for most of the game, but it's hugely bad for Terran late game. When they lose that technical army, those medevacs, those Ghosts, you say a few production cycles, but they're all coming off of very specialized buildings. Like, you don't usually have 30 tech labs or something like that. So getting the Ghost count back up takes several cycles. Medevacs, sure, but that means you're not making things like Liberators, which are the heavy damage dealers in the late game. So HeroMarine just has to sit back and take it for a while, and that's really rough.
You know how you can tell he's riding the struggle bus a little bit? He's building 2 Reapers. That only ever happens on accident this late in the game.
There you go. And another run by here on the south, and this is going to go on forever. ShoWTimE has infinite money at this point in time. He's up to 6 bases, going on 7, I believe.
Yep. And now that he cracked those 2 bunkers on the south side of the 3rd, he's free to just start harassing and poking with his other units. He's going to lose one of these orbitals. That's huge, because remember, Dark Templar are in play, so every ability to drop a scan is huge now. And Tempests are on the field to help deal with those Liberators. So HeroMarine, he had a ton of money coming in. Despite everything, he's able to remax. He gets a huge army again, and it's going to come down to another couple of brutal engagements to try and irk this one out.
Okay, well, it's getting chased into the southern base, but I think there's a lot of army down there as well, so that's the scary part. Liberators can usually face one direction and do a lot of damage. But here we go, yeah, on the left side, actually those might be probes pulled off the line. So this base is dead. It's been sequestered away by those Liberators, and 1 for HeroMarine. He has the option to load up and go into the main. I think he's thinking about it.
Yeah, he could drop in the main. He's got so many Liberators. This coverage is going to be amazing. And really just going to come down to the positioning and how much he can kill before the Tempest push him off.
Ooh. And he's fighting into those Liberators, but they're not quite all zoned in over there. And the army is so central that any storms, yeah, exactly, kind of pushes them off. It is just the Liberators doing most of this right now. It's 4 or 5 of them. The Tempest count is not so significant that they're really just removing the Liberators, and a lot of damage is done there.
Oh no, a Ghost left behind! Rip. And that very, very loud scream of death.
Look at 12 o'clock, by the way. At this point on this map,
that base,
your expansions get pretty close.
Yes,
that's 6 o'clock, our Observer man.
They are very good friends in control, so as one might say.
Yeah.
DT is going to roll up. Yep, so he knows. The lack of storm here is, I think, going to increasingly become a problem, as there's only 2 High Templar left on the field. And they're both fresh, so there are no storms available. And a lot of it's going to come down to just jockeying for positioning with the Liberators. And I guess at some point, probably just trying to get Vikings out, because the Colossi are all that's stopping bio with them when there's no storm.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing I would be critical of ShoWTimE's play right now. It's so many Liberators, and he has these Tempests. Not a huge number, mind you, but there is, like Nate just pointed out, no Vikings basically whatsoever. So You need to be active with these Liberators because in order to get these, Tempests, to get through those Liberators, you got to start to go to work now. But
yep. Scan the +3 ship weapons. I love that. The +2 ship weapons is really important for Liberators to two-shot the Stalkers. It has a giant effect on the fights. It's going to use a little bit of a recall. Recall some of the DTs. Having the DTs mixed in the army is just really nice in this phase of the game. Even with all the scans, being able to like snipe and try to assassinate the ghosts is huge.
A kind of funny other utility of those blink DTs is sometimes when those drops happen in your main, warping in Zealots or Stalkers, they can't get in because the angle off of your own gateways makes it really bad. But blink DTs get right past that, jump on top of the Bioforce and start cleaving.
This could be big too. The Prism's made it into the main.
Oh, jeez.
DTs and Zealots getting warped in on your production. And he's maxed out, so you can't build anything. What's about to come out is all he'll have here to defend without... Yeah, now he's stimming everything else back. He's got some of his stuff here by this planetary up front, but... he's trying to reposition.
Is there any storm? I think there's one storm in that army. You can see on the Templar. But he's just going to...
Oh my god.
Kite around here. He's losing so much. It's like a probe army for some reason.
Yeah.
But he's holding. There's a planetary he's getting sandwiched against now.
Very interesting army movement here. If we can call it an army at this point.
And if you look at the map, he actually has lost and not remade the other bases. So these probes are huge. The army's going to win the fight there. And the main's just straight up getting lifted. This game is getting crazy.
Yeah. HeroMarine has all the money, and he no longer has production, really. He's got a couple of his barracks, I think, by the 3rd.
Whoa.
And now he's starting to build a bunch more barracks and more starports. Weird.
ShoWTimE has been hurt real bad, but he is the one that's dislodged the production.
I felt like HeroMarine pretty much had this game in the bag, but you know, the biggest weakness for Terran in like late game situations is if you get to the production, because everything's going to mostly flow from that area because you set it all up at the start of the game, and then everything's got to build out of there and run over. So once you're maxed out, you don't have any. There's no creep, there's no teleport. You got to be aware. You have to have turrets or something in position. These DTs are absolutely disgusting.
It's been good. It's been the call, right? Like, just Zealots do not do what we would see here. It's been their ability to get away from those Liberators to come over and answer.
I think super underrated in one of the patches over the last year was the buff to the cooldown of Shadow Strike as well. Because the DT blink used to be 21 seconds, and then you'd think, was like, oh yeah, we cut it down to 14. You're like, well, 14 seconds is still long, but in a game, that difference is felt very, very much.
It ends up being in combat, you get to blink sometimes twice, whereas before it just never happened. So you'd blink in, they'd find you, and then you'd either do your damage or die. But now you can blink in, do some stuff, run away a little bit, then blink away, and that's huge.
Yep. 7 seconds is a lot.
And I love this from ShoWTimE too. It just backs up, says, okay, I'll wait for your scan to finish and probably return back over there.
Being a bit more patient, trying to be at least.
And now he's retaking 6 o'clock. And I think one of the real costs to this game has been HeroMarine is still up in supply, so it might sound weird that we're talking about this like he's behind. But in that meantime, ShoWTimE is retaking 6 o'clock, and he's mining out the right side. Had he not taken that base, it was just scrap versus scrap, he can lose that game. But as it is right now, he's in a spot where if he can hold on to that base, get it mining, the Tempest, the Colossus, the DTs, it becomes a real issue for this Terran that's only just now producing again.
Ooh, survive! Oh no, okay, so close. The Liberators are going to come up here and try to siege on this base outside the natural again. But there's a good amount of Vikings. Got to be careful with those Tempests. Those Tempests are his anchor in this very, very turbulent sea of a TvP.
I think the Tempests are too much. The once critical number of Liberators is getting really low, and now you're in this tough spot when that happens where you're like, do I make more Vikings to kill the Tempest, or do I make more Liberators to live through the game?
He does still have 10 Liberators, I think is important to point out. He's got 4 more coming in. I feel like the Viking count is still the ace factor here. He only has 6 of them, but he's starting to chip away at the Tempest, which is really all he needs to do. Once the Tempests are gone, these Liberators are just going to kill everything, so.
Yeah. Great army movement here. This game is still hanging in the balance. It really can go either way. I love that there's still actually ghosts here. If HeroMarine would have abandoned that entirely, like a lot of Terrans do, then the storm becomes the insurmountable.
Mechanic, yeah, that's, I mean, how many, I think every Terran player has had a bajillion games where you're like, oh yeah, I can just finish this with just a bunch of Marines and Marauders, and then Protoss player squeezes out a few storms in a tight scenario, and you're like, oh.
Quietly behind this, by the way, HeroMarine's been throwing Liberators at mineral lines this whole time. He's not necessarily killing a lot of probes, but he's stopping the bases from mining. It's been huge.
Yep. Liberators with range. Yeah, you need air units for Protoss to be able to deal with that. And a little bit of a scrap in the middle. It's a good shot.
Oh my god. Well, that one just whiffed entirely, actually.
Yeah, but now both Disruptors are going to die, unfortunately. And that Colossus, last Big Daddy Colossus, is gone.
He has a storm coming up on that Templar right in the middle. It's the only Templar there. He's going to jump to the high ground. He wants to take this fight. Where's the storm? No,
EMP.
it just gets EMP'd, but the Zealots charge through the zone. Liberators will die.
Oh, DT's from the back, too.
Wow. And the Blink Dark Templar getting on top of that. All the Liberators, well, one is a, yeah, okay.
Those DTs are killing so much. Oh my god, he's not scanning.
He might not have that many, man.
Okay, well there he throws the EMPs down to get the detection.
And you know what? HeroMarine might have done it. He's at 140 supply. ShoWTimE is out. He taps out.
GG.
Wow.
Ow. What a game. Wow, that was a sick TvP. That was a good one.
Yeah, I am completely refreshed by that. It was very scrappy and back and forth, and there was a lot of really good choices. These are two of the smarter players in the scene. I think that's something we always just kind of assume about StarCraft players. There's just generally a baseline level of somewhat genius. They're very smart guys, but these two put an extra level of thought into this game, and we saw that. The army movement was incredible. There's a lot of passive play, which can make people nervous because we see everything. So we're like, you need to make this critical. You got to go now. But in their minds, too. And by the way, the amount of games you'll see where a Terran player completely lifts their main, and it's not like a base trade scenario. It's just more of a, like, I can't produce here anymore, and then wins later.
Doesn't happen.
It does not happen. That's amazing that HeroMarine was able to do that.
I would say one of the best comeback plays that you'll see, and this happens a lot in Zerg versus Terran as well, is you get onto the Terran production when they're maxed out and not by home, and you just kill everything. And it takes so long to try and rebuild all those barracks, all those factories, all those tech labs, the reactors, the starports, yada, yada, yada. It gets really difficult. It's a very tough spot to be in because when you're playing Terran, like, that's it. You have to wait for your units to die, or you have to run them home because you're maxed, and, you know, that's tough. It's a really scary spot to be. Like, so often do we see, like, those, like, especially with having DTs on the production too, with the Zealots, like the Terran, that's it, and then they just die. Same thing with Zerglings, and they're like, all right, I'll just counterattack now, and there's like 80 Banelings on creep.
The other thing too, and I talked a little bit about this throughout the game, but the Terran army at the end of a game in TvP needs to be ridiculously multifaceted. It has to have Liberators, probably Vikings, Ghosts, Medivacs, and then a Bioforce to support that at minimum. There's other things you can add to that as well. But very often what ends up happening is the ebb and flow of the game means that they're like, well, I'm not making Vikings anymore. I'm just going to go all in on Liberators. Or I don't have Ghosts anymore because the Ghost Academy's gone and they're expensive to make, so it just ends up being Bio. And then each time those things fall away from the army, the Protoss is able to really capitalize on that.
Right.
But HeroMarine never gave up on that. The entire time his army remained exactly what it needed to be, even when the production got dislodged, even when starports were getting killed. He still kept that army up and going. And then the few mistakes that ShoWTimE made, I think, were like expansion placements and then not really committing to shutting down that one mining base of HeroMarine meant that HeroMarine was able to scrap this out, keep the army up and going, and then win the fight in the end. Amazing.
Yeah, really, really, really good tenacity. And biggest thing, I'm just going to repeat what you said, was really like that he kept the focus on the diversity in the unit comp, even in the scrappy late phase. Because those Ghosts also saved him a few times with the EMPs clutch on those Dark Templar. It's like one of those things that is kind of, I feel like people know it, but we don't really see it happen a lot. But if you have a cloaked unit, EMP reveals it. So it doesn't come into play super often in StarCraft, because usually if you have Ghosts, you have a bunch of orbitals to scan with, so you're just scanning. But
great to see this from HeroMarine. All the Terran players, you know, we make our jokes, but they've been very vocal about struggling in the TvP matchup in particular. And one of the things that has been kind of called to be, you know, the age-old questions like, why did the Terrans in Korea do so well, but the Terrans outside of that kind of suffer? And the kind of ugly answer is that what you're asked to do as a Terran player in the late game of the TvP matchup in particular is mechanically and StarCraft's already challenging. I think it's one of the most challenging. The late game Terran army in TvP is one of, if not the hardest army to control in all of StarCraft. And there's that limiting factor. So a lot of players won't try to get there. They'll do slower mech, or they'll do cheese earlier on, or a big timing attack, pull the boys. Like, they don't want to get to that stage. HeroMarine, in these series so far against ShoWTimE, one of, if not the best Protoss outside of Korea, did it. And he did it the hard way, and he did it good. So it's really cool to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm also just giving a shout out to ShoWTimE breaking out the Blink DTs, because I think that it's one of those things that over time we will see more and more. And I guess maybe we already do see it a decent bit, but it's probably because we don't get a lot of TvPs that go that long anymore.
But to your point, it's definitely on the cutting edge.
It's really strong. Like I think when the Dark Templar's Blink was first announced, everyone thought it was a joke because they're like, well, this would be so broken if the Dark Templar could teleport. Are you kidding me? And they even like griefed us when they told us about it before they announced it, where they're like, oh yeah, we're going to make some fun changes like giving DTs Blink. And everyone laughed, and he's like, but seriously, we're giving DTs Blink. And it ended up being very underwhelming because the resources were expensive for it. Obviously, it took forever to research, but those two got scaled back. It takes a little bit less time to research now. The cooldown got reduced by, I think mathematically for them it was like 30 or like 50% or something. So it is, it's a much better tool, especially for those late game. Like just jumping past a wall to get onto those bunkers like he did was really good. Makes sniping turrets really easy, and it's something that I hope that we see more of.
Yeah.
Because it's also awesome to just watch like 7 DTs blink like that with that like smoke trail behind them, and they slice a whole army in half.
Well, one kind of funny nuance before we move on to actually talk about the game, but the Blink DT attack at that 9 o'clock base was against 2 bunkers. And if those are just zealots, do they win that fight? Probably. But it takes a very long time and gives the Terran a chance to respond with I think it was like 6 Blink DTs or so, blinking directly on top of the bunkers, and then there's a scan to reveal them. Means that they win the fight very quickly and get to start chomping on that base. And like you point out in the game, after the bunkers died, the DTs even left. Yes, the attack got pushed away, but then Stalkers came in to be annoying because there's no bunkers there anymore. So that's a kind of cool utility there. But in game here, we have a more passive opening from ShoWTimE. It's Robo, Observers, and he's going to kind of go back to that wall defensive playstyle that he is.
Yep. So very back to basics, I guess we could say. On his part, I think we will see HeroMarine go for that Raven again. The tech lab is ready and waiting. Very standard. I find it humorous because if you watch like the TvT trend, the Raven popped up in there faster. And even though, okay, Cloak Banshee is definitely out there, I imagine it'll still follow it up with a Raven, but that's interesting to see. But I was going to say, like, in Terran versus Terran, we'd already seen a bunch of this. Like, the Raven stuff started really quickly after the interference matrix changed, because it was obvious how apparent, you know, how strong it could be against tanks. And as time goes by, more and more of that TvT type stuff is what we're seeing in TvP now, as people are like, okay, well, actually going with this, like, early Raven tank into Vikings is... It kind of works for Protoss as well, from all the interference matrix benefits. And to an even bigger degree, because you don't really see the Dorito cannon used in TvT, but it is amazing against Protoss.
Yeah. I would say, as a caster, I'm a huge fan of the Raven. I think it just provides so much utility.
It's a lot
detection's
cooler.
A big deal as well.
It's a lot cooler than when we saw 40-point defense drones spammed that didn't time out for 3 minutes.
Yeah. But we are going to have that kind of mini push coming out from HeroMarine. And behind this, there's not a third CC, which is one of the things you'd look towards to see if how committed he's going to be here. But Stim does get started.
Hey, look at that. We get to see the impact of that slow zone. It makes it a little bit harder for the Stalkers to run back in this position. Actually allows the Marines to just shoot them. Can't kite very effectively. And I'd say, yeah, this attack gets pushed a bit, but the third Nexus hasn't actually started yet. And he just killed... Yeah, he's got 4 Stalker kills for basically a handful of Marines. And now the Banshee gets to go to work, and that loss of a few Stalkers becomes a little bit more painful. They should be able to get it.
Only killed 1 probe. And the Stalkers end up pushing back the whole force. So yeah, they get 4 Stalkers, but the investment of opening Cloak Banshee cannot be undersold here. If he's not going to keep making Banshees, which I think there's 1 more maybe on the map, and it gets 1 probe.
Oh yeah, no, he didn't even build another Banshee.
And that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, you're right. He's going to lose this siege tank, which I think is much worse too. Yeah. Oh my God, the Colossus just got... Normally we think that rally is a mistake, but are we going to see this 3 Stalker, 1 Colossus attack? Is this happening? Is this real life?
Well, at the very least, it would get the Matrix shut down, which is nice, just to not have that energy later. But nope, looks like it was a rally mistake.
I was about to say, I'm like, this is one of the weirdest attacks I've ever seen.
But look at the state of HeroMarine. 3rd command center just now starts. Obviously, it's not on location. He is going to have Stim finish up. Upgrades are kind of coming in, but he loses that tank, which is a big stabilizing force. I'd love a shot of the factory. Yeah, it is a reactor, so there's no more tanks out here. This concerns me for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, Colossi, huh?
Widow Mines are cool, and I normally really like them, but specifically against a Protoss that's already shown a lot of Stalkers and is now going towards Colossus, the utility is a little bit less. The idea of them dropping and being successful is hard to kind of sell me on. We do see that it's charge first, by the way, from ShoWTimE, which is a more aggressive upgrade.
Yeah, okay, that gives me... It makes me want to have a little bit more faith in the utility of mines here, but for everything that you just mentioned, though, Colossi simply outrange them. So if you have an observer with your Colossi, they're going to be able to punch through mines very easily. But yeah, if he builds a bunch of charged zealots and they run ahead of the Colossi, then it doesn't matter. Then the Widow Mines will still kill all of them, but that just makes it a little bit trickier. This observer, expertly placed, is going to see everything.
All day long, ShoWTimE's observers have been incredible.
He's ready, too. He's even got one of the Colossi there, just chilling. It's like, yeah, you want to try and drop and fight the Stalkers? Go for it, my dude.
There's actually 2 observers over here. This entire left side of the map, you cannot get past it without being seen. And that's just ShoWTimE's dedication to being very simple. You have to just outplay him in army. And yes, you can get a drop in later, but it's only going to be through the chaos of war, not just a drop randomly.
Yeah, Nick, you want to attack here, but here we go. This is where the Raven can be really big. Interference Matrix. Oh my god, he dodges it! He dodges both! He picks him up with the Warp Prism,
Beautiful.
And none of them hit the Colossi.
Wow, and he actually had the Warp Prism back, too, in case there was a chance
so sick
that HeroMarine would sniff out that play. ShoWTimE busts out an incredible move. I think in theory we all knew, and I'm sure people do this, but specifically against that push right there, that is massive and maybe series saving.
Yeah, could have been game-ending attack there if he gets the disable on those Colossi, and then he still had energy to do another one for the third that was popping, so
I love it.
Just massive props. You know, that's, I'm going to put that right there with the EMP that saved HeroMarine last game, too, because that was another one where HeroMarine, I thought he could have died right then and there. He got the sickest EMPs off, clutch moment, and we see there that Warp Prism Micro saving the Colossi, using it as bait for the Interference Matrix is really nice.
It just, he had an army split, right? Because it was a double medevac drop, so he can't just have like 4 zealots over there. Then you go over to this main fight, and the Bioforce was massive. The choke area is pretty wide, too, so it's not like they would have an impossible time getting through there. I have to agree with Nate. It very well could have been a game and thus series-saving pull and a move there to execute in this game 3.
HeroMarine just canceled. He canceled a gas building. Huh.
Okay.
He's getting ready to posture on this base, but I think he canceled like his armory or his Ghost Academy. It's a little bit interesting.
Sure. More shield batters being added here for ShoWTimE, and he's pretty squarely on his side of the map. In the past, against these other Terran players, he's been mid-map pushing around and being aggressive, but right now he's saying, I defended that kind of bulky 2.5 base attack, and now he's getting his own 4th, and with these observers, he sees that no harass is coming his way, and he knows there's no 4th base. He's warping in on location there at where the 4th base would be, so he just needs to hold on. He needs to hold on for this fight.
Yeah, the Raven has almost enough energy.
He's got 1 Templar to feed.
But there's the Templar, yeah. He's just waiting. Yep. Oh my god. Sick denial. Dude, ShoWTimE. He is playing so well here today.
He is. He's busting out all the moves. The feedback on the Raven is the answer for that. And now he's dropping in, albeit just a few units on top of that natural, but they're getting to work on this. The army is pushing back. He's feeling confident to blink forward. He gets a couple of the medevacs. There's still a decent number of Vikings, though, so we have to respect it.
SCVs are dying at the same time, though. So while all of this is going down and this army starts to get slowly whittled away, he needs to make a big play.
Ooh, a missile.
10 plus SCVs dead. Most of the Terran army yellow health, but the Colossi
gone.
Been culled. Vikings are going to land and soak just a little bit of damage as the Bio tries to crack open this third.
The huge Bio concave, and there's still a decent number of medevacs behind with energy. So yes, they're low health, but they might just well be invincible. The Immortal doing some pretty good damage. He is going to step forward here. It looks like it just took too long as now Zealot sandwiched the right side.
8 kills in that fight, putting the team on his back in control.
Yeah.
And he didn't invest in a follow-up. So there's no Ghost Academy, there's no Armory. We've got a 1-1 Terran who's about to be up against a 2-2 Protoss, and suddenly this is looking like...
it's 85 army supply.
Yeah, he brought the boys.
It's 85 army supply. He knows he has to win right now after that damage is done behind him, and he's going to push forward. There's no time for Storm, so the Archons are going to try to get morphed in here, but there just might be too much Terran as he pushes forward. There's no shield battery entry. The Immortals are going down, and the Archons do come in, but what do they have as targets? Not much.
Yeah, the Colossus and Archons trying to help at least get rid of the SCV count so that the Immortals can whack away at everything else, but that base gets neutralized. He still has the one north of the main, so he's just, I mean, you're just trying to spend that money that you're pulling in as fast as you possibly can to try and hold this attack, but man, I love the Liberator to help anchor this down, and the Vikings try to chase the Colossus too.
And he's going to push forward here. Even the Natural's going to be given up here. Another huge warping of Stalkers. The Colossus, every time it gets to shoot, kills a huge number of units as they are just not very healthy, but now the Natural is falling. Supplies are kind of weird, though. It's just all army for the Terran player. He has to win right now. He's pulled almost every SCV there is on the map, and the Stalkers are on the high ground. Sentry's able to, there's now 2 Colossi out here. Nate, ShoWTimE's holding on. I think he's going to kill the Liberator. He just gets it. He's on the low ground. The other Liberator's left behind.
And this army is just so weak. The hit points are so low. Even if you, this is a lot of Marauders. He could dive on the Colossus, but everything is going to die in like 1 or 2 hits.
God. Yep.
Oh,
ShoWTimE's doing it. The Colossus behind the line. There's no answer for him. The army is getting evaporated, and now ShoWTimE's up in supply. He's up in army. He's up in workers. And HeroMarine's going to pull back, but in this winter match, it is hard to see him go home and find an answer for what's coming. More probes being made, a 3rd Colossus, and he can't afford Vikings, so these Colossus are going to become Godzillas.
That is such an easy position to lose from, like trying to defend that 4th base, trying to hold on to it if you're playing a little too tenaciously. And the weirdest part about all of this is the only base he lost was the Natural, so he still has fresh minerals that he can put probes onto as he rebuilds them. So his economy is fine.
Yeah.
And HeroMarine is just relying on mules now for the most part. He's got 30 SCVs, and this base up front super exposed. There is a world where ShoWTimE maybe overextends if he doesn't wait for some reinforcements because the Prism isn't here. But other than that, I think you just wait for another like production cycle and you're good.
And ShoWTimE is going to kind of hang out here. I believe there's a Warp Prism coming to sync up with the army, so he can do a kind of consolidated push on that 3rd base.
I think that's all he needs, right? Just get the Prism over there. And
yeah, and I love this call, too, because if he pushes out in between, there's a chance SVs get pulled and the army kind of collapses down. And if you lose the Colossus, you lose the teeth here. But he's not going to give him that. He's going to say, okay, I've got economy up behind this. I'm going to warp in and shove. You can pull back into your Natural, but by now it's got to be almost mined out, and I'm just going to win the game.
Yep. Hey, there's the other story of this game, too, by the way, the Observers that see everything. So he comes up into this base. Stalkers blink over, Zealots charge in. Storm's going to force this army back. And with the force fields as well, he's going to have to stim again with energyless medevacs. More Storms rain down, and ShoWTimE looks like he is going to be getting out of this group in 1st place. He has done such a good job. GG, well played to ShoWTimE.
And that was one of the best series I've seen in all of WCS.
That's very good.
Hats off to HeroMarine. He played really, really well. ShoWTimE didn't give him an inch. Even in the game that ShoWTimE lost, like I said, I was really impressed with how ShoWTimE put HeroMarine in position to show how good he can be. And then in this game, the pulling of the SCVs was actually the right call. I usually don't like that, but because of the warping of Zealots at his Natural and because of just how desperate the game had got, trying to remake that and pull back only means that this Protoss that's on like 4 bases can all of a sudden have more Templar, more Colossus, and you're just not going to get there. But ShoWTimE to hold there, and every choice he made in those battles was the right one, was incredible. That was a really exhilarating game.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was really cool to see. So many moments where either player could have been able to eke out that advantage. The clutch pickup with the Warp Prism on the Colossi is...
Well, the 1 Templar for feedback. After that he was like, that trick's probably not going to work again, so I'm going to go for the feedback. Amazing.
Just an amazing game, really. A treat to watch. So we're going to take a look at our remaining schedule here as we round out Group B for WCS Challenger Europe Edition. We've got Marine Lord against HeroMarine. A TvT for the ages to find out who's getting out and who's going home. We'll be right back.